I have really seen a ramp up in the guardian disability denials. I mean, from what would be like 1 out of every 10 calls, might be like 30% of our calls now. So for whatever reason as to what they're doing, I think it's because they got new management inside who wants to be what I call the tough guy. I am Greg Dell, joined by attorney Alexander Palomara, and we're going to talk about guardian long-term disability denial claims. And Alex, you've handled thousands and thousands of long-term disability denials, many of them with the Guardian Insurance Company. Also, they have their individual disability claims called Berkshire disability insurance claims. And in this video, what we want to talk about is we're going to cover common reasons for a guardian long-term disability denial. We're going to talk about the solutions and options if you've been denied, which we're going to cover guardian disability appeal, guardian disability lawsuit. And when someone gets this type of guardian, disability denial, obviously they've never dealt with this before. They have this letter. It says usually if it's not an individual disability claim, it's an employer provided policy, which is what most people have. It basically says you have rights under ERISA and you can file an appeal, and they have no idea what that means. They probably had Guardian tell them, hey, don't really worry about it. You can just go ahead and tell us, that you want us to look at it again, and we'll do an appeal, and we'll get into why they shouldn't do that. And they also see, well, you can't even file a lawsuit yet. And people are confused about that. I mean, what do you mean I can't file a lawsuit? You're denying me my rights. I'm going to sue you. That's what we do in this country. However, when it comes to ERISA governed claims, that's not exactly the way it goes right away. It's a different animal here. So but before we get into the remedies of what you can do, I want to talk about some of the most common reasons that you see for why Guardian denies long-term disability claims. And I will say that I have really seen a ramp up in the Guardian disability denials. I mean, from what would be like 1 out of every 10 calls, might be like 30% of our calls now. So for whatever reason as to what they're doing, I think it's because they got new management inside who wants to be what I call the tough guy and is trying to be more strict on claims, looking for reasons to deny claim. That wasn't the MO of Guardian in the past that I saw. And now it's like if there's a reason to deny a claim, Guardian jumps on it and they deny a claim. Not what I've seen in the past. So, but what are the most common reasons that you see for Guardian disability denial?
Well, certainly they do a review of the medical records and they think there's not enough there to find that person to be disabled. Do they look at it in a very biased way? Certainly they do. But the biggest reason is a lack of proof of loss. So proof of loss, every policy requires that you prove your case to the insurance company. It's called proof of loss. You have to show them that you are disabled under the terms of the policies. Typically for the first 2 years under Guardian's policies, you have to satisfy an own occupation provision of the policy showing that you're unable to do the duties of your own occupation. When I talk about the provision of the policy, right now I'm talking about the ERISA governed group disability insurance policy, not the individual ones. So they do a review of the file. They say there's not enough proof of loss here. So either A, you didn't send in enough medical records to support your claim to show that you're disabled. Maybe you have back, neck injuries. Maybe you have mental health issues, and all you said was a limited time period of medical records, or your doctor's only responded with a limited time period of medical records, and not enough to show that, hey, you've had these issues for a long period of time and the issues leave you unable to work. Or maybe your medical records were just not strong enough. But the most common reason is proof of loss. Now, if a person's been on claim for over a year, over 2 years, then different provisions of the policy will kick in, and the insurance company might now say, maybe now you have to prove that you can't do any gainful occupation. They might say, you don't qualify because we believe while you're disabled from your own occupation, we don't find you disabled from any gainful occupation, so now we're denying your claim. But again, it could be for lack of proof of loss, saying, hey, your medical records proved it for the first 2 years, but doesn't prove it anymore because there's a new definition of disability. Or there could be a 24-month mental health limitation or other limiting language of the policy that says, hey, we paid you for 24 months. You don't qualify anymore because your claim was mental health, and now we get to ignore all the mental health issues going on with you, and you're not physically disabled. So maybe to provide proof of loss for physical disability. So there could be a lot of different reasons, but the biggest reason I see is lack of proof of loss or not enough proof of your claim.
Well, in that answer, you gave us 3 reasons. You gave us the proof of loss is not sufficient. You gave us the change of definition. And then the third one you also gave us was restrictions, which could be a mental nervous limitation, a musculoskeletal limitation, something that says we agree you're disabled, but that condition only pays for 24 months. So, but I want to dig a little deeper into the first one because that's the biggest of them all, the granddaddy, the proof of loss. And the way I really look at that is that that's really all about what is your evidence in support of disability, which goes to the next question. Where does evidence come in these long-term disability claims? And evidence, as we always say, comes from the medical records. And your case is only as good as the strength of your medical records. So then that leads to the next question. Well, how do I make my medical records strong? And the medical records get strong based upon the manner in which the doctor documents your files. That sounds easy to say, sure, I'll just tell my doctor to document the file good. But it's not that easy, because the disability insurance company is looking for things that in the ordinary care and treatment of a patient, the doctor is just not going to put into the records, especially when you have a patient who's going to the doctor once a month, every 3 months, sees them all the time. They don't continue every time to do repeat testing of things the doctor already knows. They don't continue to write down the same exact restrictions and complaints that the claimant was saying every other time. More so, the doctor and the patient have a relationship, because you and I always say you treat the patient, not the chart, right? So, and doctors know their patient. But what happens with that, when doctors have relationships with patients and only use the records as a brief reminder, disability company goes, wow, these medical records are really weak. So here you got the client saying, I got all these problems. And you look at the records and you go, well, the records are only saying about 2 out of the 10 things that you're talking about. And that's where people get into trouble. But the other thing is that people say, look, I have complaints of pain, fatigue, difficulty remembering things. And Alex, how am I supposed to prove that to the disability insurance company? What else can I do to support those types of subjective complaints that I have?
Right. Well, to reiterate what you're saying is that you need to make sure your medical records have everything in there that you're complaining about. Again, your doctor is writing these medical records not to prove to some independent consultant in an ivory tower 6 months from now that this person's disabled. They're writing the records to treat the patient. So next time they see it, like, oh, last time you were saying this, how's that going? They go, oh, you're doing okay. They write down okay in your medical records, which is terrible, because the insurance company says, oh, they said you're doing okay. You're no longer disabled. But the key is to be as descriptive as possible when you're seeing your doctors. Ask your doctors to put it in there. Say, listen, doctor, I'm making a claim for disability benefits. I need it to be as descriptive as possible. All my complaints in there and all my objective evidence, cite to it each time. So the insurance company knows that I'm disabled and my conditions and my complaints continue. How do you prove it? Talk to your doctor. Depends on what your disability is, what your disabling conditions are, what your various diagnoses are. Is there objective ways to prove it? Is there an MRI to prove it? Is there any other diagnostic testing to show that you have these conditions and that they're to the extent that you are disabled? There's other things outside of your own provider. You could talk to a physical therapist and do a functional capacity evaluation in an effort to show that you don't have the ability to sit all day or ability to lift all day or whatever it is. There is, there's cognitive testing. If you have a cognitive impairment, there's neuropsychological evaluation. There's cognitive functional assessments. There's different, sometimes, most of the time they're objective, but there's sometimes subjective testing that you can use to prove your claim. And you have to do all of it. You have to be, you've said this in another video before, as a disabled person, you think, I don't have a job anymore, but you do have a job. And your job is to review your medical records to make sure they're on the up and up and that they're correct, and to make sure that you're getting as much diagnostic testing as you could possibly do, because you need to prove your claim to the insurance company.
The other thing that is a nice tool that's come out, that's out there on the internet and the app stores and things like that, is to use these pain tracker apps or symptom tracker apps. I know we have a custom one that we've contracted with a company that was built for specific to long-term disability claims that we offer to our clients, which generates really nice reports and tracks all the symptoms. And what that does is, while this is an interesting terminology, is it objectifies the subjective complaints. And the courts have supported that theory to say that if you have a pain log and ongoing complaints documented of your subjective complaints, that is in fact objective evidence of pain, objective evidence of fatigue, objective evidence of the suffering that you're going through. But if you don't have that, and the disability insurance company says, we don't see anything in your records to show that you're fatigued, because the day you went to the doctor, they said patient's mood is good, this is what they rely upon, then there's no evidence of the fatigue. So that's another thing that people can use. Some of these apps are free. Some are very nominal, $10, $5 a month. And then it can generate a report for you, which you can then take to your doctor. You can supplement and send to the insurance company and show these are all the things that I've been going through with diary notes throughout of, I had to take a nap today for 2 hours. I had to cancel going to dinner with my kids. I couldn't drive my son to school this morning. I was supposed to do 3 things that my family asked me to do. Forgot to do all of them. I couldn't get any of them done. Or I had one little bill to pay today, and I got on the phone with the credit card company, and after 10 minutes, I had to hang up the phone. I couldn't wait on hold to talk to them. This is real world stuff that all of our clients go through every day, but they just deal with it because they're going to live life. They're not going to sit around and complain about it. But guess who doesn't know about it? The disability company. And that's the problem. The case is only as good as the strength of the evidence that you give them. And that only comes from the medical records or whatever you tell them.
And this app is a great, product because it gives you a daily evidence of what you're going through. You see your doctor, maybe someone does it once a month. That's kind of unheard of. Once every 3 months, once every 6 months. And whenever you talk to your doctor, this, how have you been? You maybe think back for the last week or two when you give them the answer. So your doctor's office or your doctor's notes are maybe like a snapshot in time once every 3 or 6 months. Something like this app it's a daily breakdown of what you're going through. Now, mind you, it better match up with what you're saying because the insurance company could certainly do surveillance. And you said, hey, on July 24th, I was down for the count. I couldn't do this, that, and the other because I was in so much pain. They get you on surveillance. Going to the grocery store carrying a 12-pack of whatever, you're going to get in trouble. Well, I have to be honest when you use it.
Well, you brought up the other common reason we see for denial is that the disability company either does video surveillance of a claimant or they get on their social media platforms, no matter what it is, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever they have, and, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So be super careful. We always tell clients, stay off of them if you can. Be careful of your family members or friends who post you on those. Those are commonly used as a method for Guardian to deny a claim. If you're someone out there who has a Guardian disability claim, feel free to reach out to Alex, myself. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you, and we look forward to the opportunity to provide you with a free consultation.